Okay, let's be real for a sec. Emergencies, they're not exactly something we like to dwell on, right?
Hmm,
Especially at church. But just imagine something does happen. Would you know what to do?
that's a good question.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into something that's really made us think, the Cornerstone Baptist Church Emergency Action Plan.
Yeah, this document, it's a real eye-opener.
It is. And it might just make you, well, rethink how prepared you are for anything.
I was blown away by how thorough this plan is. Seriously, they've thought about everything. Medical emergencies,
Fires.
severe weather, even, well, intruders, you name it.
Yeah, it's not just some vague list of ideas. This thing is incredibly detailed.
It is.
So let's start with their safety team.
Okay.
This isn't just a couple of volunteers like thrown together. They have a structured team with specific roles.
That's one of the things that really stands out, this clarity. It means everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to do when something happens. No confusion, just action. They have a building coordinator who knows every inch of that church building.
That's reassuring, right?
Yeah,
Someone who can get people to safety no matter what's going on.
absolutely. And then they have a safety team coordinator who's kind of like, the conductor of this whole orchestra,
I love that analogy.
making sure everyone is in sync. And of course, you got to have people who can, handle medical situations until the paramedics get there.
Right, sure.
That's where the medical response team comes in.
Yeah.
And what I found really impressive was how they're so proactive when it comes to medical emergencies.
Okay.
They have count them, three first aid kits, all strategically placed throughout the building.
Oh, wow.
And they also have, get this, 2 AEDs ready to go.
Okay, so that's the equipment.
Yeah,
But do they actually, make sure people know how to use all of it?
absolutely. They offer CPR training,
Oh, nice.
first aid training, AED training, all to their leaders and teachers.
Regularly.
Yeah, regularly. They're really committed to making sure everyone has the skills to respond, not just hoping for the best.
Yeah.
They're equipping their people to be the best responders they can be.
That's great.
Yeah,
So let's talk about fire and smoke. I mean, it's a church, right? They have
Yeah.
candles, kitchens, lots of potential hazards.
lots. Yeah, but they've got it covered. Their plan, it walks you through every single step. Calling 911,
Yeah.
how to use the fire extinguishers, which they have all over the building, and even, the best ways to escape if there's a lot of smoke.
Which is just as dangerous as the fire,
No,
honestly.
absolutely.
Crawl low,
Ah.
feel the door for heat before you open it.
Right.
Those are the basics everyone should know.
Exactly. But what's interesting is they don't just say escape. They give very specific, actionable steps to survive. And they even have designated assembly areas
Oh, yeah.
in the east and west parking lots along the tree line. So everyone knows exactly where to go after they get out. And they can make sure everyone's accounted for.
Smart. So it's not just about surviving the fire, it's about what happens after, too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, fire isn't the only weather danger. What about tornadoes?
Oh, yeah. I was really interested in that section. I live in Tornado Alley, so.
Oh, right.
What really impressed me was how they're so clear about the difference between a tornado watch and a tornado warning. That's crucial information. It can actually save lives.
Absolutely. You need to know how imminent the threat is. So where do they say people should go?
They say find the safest place indoors, away from windows, like under sturdy furniture, or in interior hallways, places where you're less likely to be hurt by debris, if stuff starts flying around. They really have thought this through.
It sounds like it. So we've covered medical emergencies, fire, severe weather. But let's be honest, there's another threat we just can't ignore these days. What about an intruder? An active shooter?
Yeah, it's not a pleasant thing to think about, but their plan, it doesn't shy away from it. And their approach, it's based on the run, hide, fight model, which means getting to safety is the top priority.
Okay, so run if you can. If you can't run, hide. But what about that last part, fighting back?
Yeah, they do acknowledge that that might be necessary.
Yeah.
And they give some guidance on how to defend yourself as a last resort. But there's one detail that really surprised me.
What's that?
They acknowledge that some members of their trained safety team, they may be carrying concealed weapons.
Wow, that's a big decision.
Yeah.
So they're not just relying on passive defense.
Oh.
It's like a layered approach to security. And I'm sure that's a decision that sparks a lot of debate.
It does, and it really highlights how complicated security is in today's world, This church has clearly thought about these difficult questions, and they've made a decision that they believe is best for their community.
It's a decision a lot of communities are wrestling with, for sure. So responding to an emergency, that's one thing. But what about preventing them in the first place?
Yeah, that's where their threats checklist comes in.
Okay.
And this thing is, well, it's pretty intense. It even includes things like, during a threatening phone call, they say to write down what the caller's voice sounds like. And if there are any background noises, like, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
They pay attention to every detail.
Yeah.
What else stood out to you on that checklist?
They have a whole section on like behavioral warning signs,
Okay.
things to watch out for, like threats of harm or people expressing really extreme viewpoints.
Oh, okay.
Those kinds of red flags that, might suggest someone is becoming a danger to themselves or others.
Right. So it's not just about reacting to a threat. It's also about like noticing those warning signs early and taking steps so things don't get worse.
Exactly. Yeah. Early intervention. That's key.
Yeah.
And this checklist, it gives people the tools to recognize those signs and know what to do.
Okay. That makes sense. But, having all this information, that's great. But it's a pretty big document.
Yeah.
How do they make sure people actually know what's in it?
Well, that's where the emergency evacuation maps come in.
Oh, okay.
And these aren't your typical fire escape diagrams. These are really detailed. They
Right.
show you where everything is. Fire extinguishers, power breakers, gas shutoffs. I mean, you name it.
So you can see all that information at a glance, which would be really helpful if you were in a stressful situation.
Absolutely. I mean, could you imagine trying to remember where the gas shutoff is when there's smoke everywhere?
No way.
Yeah, no, it'd be impossible. And they didn't stop there. They have different maps for different scenarios.
Oh, wow.
So whether it's a fire or a tornado or an intruder, people know exactly where they should go and what they should do.
They really have thought of everything.
They have. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is. But there's one more part of the plan that I thought was, well, kind of interesting. It's the injury incident report.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to admit, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, this is probably just for, insurance reasons.
It's actually a lot more than that.
Oh, real?
It's a way for them to, document any injuries and to show accountability. But most importantly, it helps them learn from what happened.
Ah, so they can look at what happened, figure out what went well and what could be better.
Right.
And then use that information to actually improve their plan for the future.
Exactly. It's this ongoing cycle of preparedness and response and then learning.
Yeah.
They're not just sitting back and thinking, oh, well, we have a plan, we're good. They're always trying to get better.
That's really impressive.
It is. And, this whole plan, it's not just some cold clinical document.
Yeah.
It really says something about this community.
What do you mean?
Well, it shows they really care about each other, about everyone being safe. They came together, thought about these really tough scenarios, and put in the effort to make sure everyone is as safe as they can be.
It's a good reminder that being prepared isn't just about, yourself. It's about building a community that can handle anything.
That's a really good point.
And this
Yeah.
church, they've created something that other organizations, other communities could learn from.
Absolutely.
You're right. But, as great as this plan is,
Mhm.
it's really just the beginning, right?
Mhm.
What really matters is how they put it into practice.
I agree. Having a plan is important, but it's just as important to make sure everyone understands it.
Right.
That they know what their role is and that they feel like they can actually do something.
Yeah.
That's where things like training and drills and communication come in.
It's kind of like that saying, practice makes perfect, right?
Right, exactly.
You can have the best plan ever,
Yeah.
but if you've never practiced it, then what happens when you actually need it?
Yeah, you're going to be in trouble. And it's not just about the practical things. It's about fostering this mindset of preparedness.
Right.
Being aware of what's going on around you and being willing to, speak up if something doesn't seem right.
And feeling like people will listen to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's about creating this environment where people feel safe and supported and like they can actually do something.
I like that, yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the specifics of this plan, but what are some of the bigger takeaways here? What do we want our listeners to remember?
I think the biggest thing is don't wait for a crisis to happen before you start thinking about how you would respond.
Right.
Start by figuring out what the potential risks are.
Okay.
Talk to experts, get their advice, and get your community involved.
So basically, don't just hope for the best, actually prepare for the worst.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming thing.
Yeah.
You can start small, focus on the most likely things that could happen where you live, and go from there.
And it's not enough to just have a plan written down somewhere.
Right.
You get to make sure people know about it, that they know what their job is and that they feel confident.
Exactly. And you should review the plan, Do some drills, and always keep talking to each other.
That's how you build a community that's actually prepared, right?
It is.
So for our listeners out there, think about your own community,
Yeah,
your workplace, your school, your neighborhood. Do you have a plan?
that's a good question.
And if you do, is it, does it cover everything? Is it up to date? Have you practiced it? Those are things we all need to be thinking about.
They are.
And if the answer to any of those is no, well, maybe it's time to start talking about being prepared.
It's funny. We call this show the Deep Dive. And this time, we're literally doing a deep dive
I know, right?
into the world of emergency preparedness.
Yeah.
And we're finding some really, really important things.
It's like we're discovering this whole new world
It is.
where being prepared is not just a good idea, it's like essential.
Absolutely.
It's like, how a scuba diver needs the right equipment and training to explore the ocean? Well, we need the right knowledge and skills to handle, those unexpected things that life throws at us.
That's a great analogy.
We've got the plan, we've got the training, we've got the team. Now we just got to put it all into practice.
And remember, being prepared, it's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
It's about always evaluating, refining, improving, making sure we're ready for anything.
It's about learning from each other, sharing what we know, and working together so we can all be safer.
Exactly.
As we wrap up this deep dive into this plan,
Yeah.
I keep thinking about how it's more than just like rules and lists.
It really is. Yeah. It shows a real sense of community.
Yeah.
This feeling that, everyone's safety is connected
It's not just about getting through something bad, it's about going through it together.
and coming out stronger because of it. I think it creates this sense of awareness,
Yeah.
and communication and trust. They're
Yeah.
not just waiting for something to happen. They're actually trying to stop it from happening in the first place.
So it's about being proactive,
Yes.
paying attention, and being willing to say something if you think something's wrong,
Right.
and knowing that people will listen.
Yeah, that's so important. So before we go, I want to ask you something.
Okay.
What's one thing, like a big idea, that you think people listening should take away from all this? Something that, makes them think about preparedness in a new way?
That's a good question.
Well, this plan, it's great, it's amazing, but it's really just the first step.
Right.
It's something that, needs to be adjusted and put into action by the community.
Right.
It's a living document, not something you just stick in a drawer and forget about.
So one size doesn't fit all. It has to work for each community.
Exactly. And that brings up a really important question for everyone listening. How can we, not just have a plan, but actually build a culture of preparedness?
That's a great question. It's more than just checking things off a list.
Right.
It's like a whole change in how we think.
Exactly. Where being prepared is just like automatic.
Yeah.
It's just part of how we do things, how we live.
Yeah. Like weaving that awareness and responsibility into everything we do.
Absolutely. And then we're not just responding to things, we're actually creating a world that's safer, a world that can bounce back from anything.
What a great way to think about it.
It is, isn't it?
This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
I hope everyone listening feels like they can go out and actually make a difference in their communities.
Me too.
Remember, this isn't the end. It's just the beginning.
It's a journey.
The journey we take together.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.